On this episode of Locked On Angels, it's Fanmail Friday, and you asked about the young guys. Which are superstars? Which are pieces for the future? Let's chat about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB, and you're going to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win to receive the $50. Prize Picks, run your game.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels, covering Angels baseball Monday through Friday. Every Friday, we love to get into your questions. That's why today is a Fan Mail Friday. Now, if you're looking for a recap of the Rangers-Angels game from last night, we'll have the full series recap on Monday for you. We like to wrap up the weekend series in one episode for you on Monday. So we're getting to your questions. Mike, you issued a question at the end of yesterday's show because we talked about some of the progress that we've seen from the young guys.
Yeah.
What progress have our Locked On Everydayers seen from the young guys? Why don't you hit us with the first question comment?
Yeah, Mark Buckner on YouTube said, I think the biggest takeaway from the season so far has been what we said. It would be going into the season. Let the kids play. Neto, O'Hoppe, Soriano, Rengifo, and Joyce have all shown some potential, not just to be productive players, but possibly stars. Moniak, Adele, Shonawell, and Ward are showing that they can get hot enough to carry the team for stretches, but they need to find more consistency, which they all seem to be doing as they hit the second half of the season. He continues and says that the bullpen's been sensational, even trading away two of its back end pieces, a lot of young, talented arms. Mark personally thinks that they should come back. It'd be great to see some of those arms back, especially someone like Hunter Strickland. I don't think people are maybe acknowledging the veteran presence that he brings to this very young bullpen. And for every bad outing that he has 10 good outings, something that's really, really good. And then, John, he finishes with, I know you guys are talking about 2026 as the year to compete, but a healthy Trout and getting back some of the pieces like Robertson and Silseth and Bachman, along with maybe two key free agent signings, one frontline starter. And I think that they can have a complete year, competitive year next year. What do you think, John?
Mike, I love that he put the two tiers. He put the players into two tiers. Two tiers. One is superstar potential.
Yeah.
Neto, O'Hoppe, Rengifo, Joyce. I love that. And then pieces to carry the team at times when maybe you don't have a Trout. Maybe O'Hoppe goes through a slump, or Neto goes through a slump.
Yeah.
Then you have guys rise to the occasion like Moniak, Adele, Shonawell, and Ward. And you see that from Moniak and Ward this past month. They've been helping keep this team in games and being really productive at the plate while O'Hoppe's been struggling for a month. So I think that he's on to something there. There's enough in terms of offense where you have these like anchor pieces. And of course, we would always love more. We'd love Trout to be more consistent in the lineup. But Mike, I think that's what's missing from this Angels team is just those anchor pieces. Trout and Rendon should have been anchor pieces. Ohtani was an anchor piece. The problem is they didn't have enough around them for when they failed. And of course, Anthony Rendon's contract is an abject failure. It's not the anchor that we wanted from him, even though that's why they signed him. I mean, gosh, he could have, if he was Rendon of the Nationals, we'd be having a different conversation, I think. But the problem is he is not an anchor piece that the Angels need. And that's an issue here. So I love the two-tier category here. Mike, what do you think about competing in 2025? What do you say?
Yeah, I think that with this Halo team right now, I don't see them going and getting any major free agents. I think that they're going to continue to build from within. That doesn't mean that I don't think that they should, but I think that they're going to move from within. Now, if they don't do anything and just kind of run with the young guys next year, then I think that there's going to be another year of development. I don't think that they're going to be any better than maybe 500 next year. Now, if they go, let's have Cade and Dana in there, and let's have Altaguiri in there, and let's bring up some of these younger guys, then maybe they can start scratching the surface of like peaking at that third wild card spot. But I think that that's going to take a lot. Remember, at the end of last year, you and I talked about this following season and them not doing much. And the reason why we came up with no expectations is we felt like it would be a developmental year. But you and I also said, if they're going to be competitive, and remember, they're going to run down the West. That's what Ron Washington said. These guys would have to play out of their minds. Like they would have to play better than they've ever played. In fact, we did an episode where we talked about how many innings Detmers and Sandoval would have to pitch, and it was going to be career highs for them. Yeah, everybody was going to have a career high. So for them to be competitive next year, I think the same narrative is still intact. Everybody's going to have a career season. Everybody's going to have to be spectacular, because I don't think they're going to do anything spectacular in the free agent market.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sydney Scott on YouTube, she said, if Trout is the key to consistency, do you think it's even more imperative to have him move to DH or first base? Maybe he can DH and field every 5 days like Theis does with catching. I know Trouty probably wants to play until the wheels fall off, but at this point, I think it needs to be more about what's best for the young core, and an injured Trout is clearly not it. Development-wise, I think what I've noticed is most guys like Neto, Adele, Moniak, and even Shawnuel adjusting at the bat, dropping the leg kicks, switching it up to toe taps or what have you. Earlier in the season, it felt like they were trying to power through with a stance that they'd been comfortable with no matter what. And now we're seeing small tweaks to actually get the hits they need, like bringing their hands in or shifting slightly in the box. Does it always work? No, but the point is that they're making those changes and finding out what does work in the moment. And I love that. Mike, what do they do with Mike Trout? Based off Sydney's question here.
I think everybody goes to the conversation, and we do as well, he should DH a whole lot more. John, I just don't think that that's going to solve the issue of his injuries. And they haven't been chronic injuries. They've just been random injuries.
Here and then here and then here. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it hasn't been anything that it's like, oh, it's the same issue every single time. Which,
not the debilitating career-threatening back injury that everybody screamed about. Right? Yeah, exactly.
The thing is that's good news, that it's not like, oh, it's the same thing all the time.
Sure.
However, he is getting hurt. Johnny hurt his knee in the minor leagues in AAA while he was standing at the plate.
Right.
So that's not him playing center field. That's him standing at the plate. And so I think that you do need to logically move him more to DH. He will probably fight that because he seems to be more engaged when he's playing in center field defensively. I just think that maybe if they do make any moves, they probably need to move him to left and have him roam out there a little bit more. And then it's got to be somebody like Ron Washington, who's got all of this experience, that would say, Trouty, here's what we need you to do, man. We want you to be around. So we're going to do the best that we can to ease the harm against your body. And so we're going to move you to left. We're going to have you DH some more. And I'm going to need you to cool it on some of your wildness on the bases. I think that those are the things that you can say to him, but that doesn't mean that it's going to help him avoid injury.
I love the point that she made of the fact that these guys need Trout in the lineup and around the clubhouse and around the team and playing with them as opposed to being on the bench. I just don't think that there's a clear solution other than just stay healthy, dude. And actually, Mike, and we have everydayers who agree with us, if he lost some muscle and is not carrying around so much mass, like gets a little leaner, I think that could go a long way to helping him stay healthy. I love Andrew Schneeweiss on YouTube. Reminds me of the name Scott Schoenweiss. I love that.
Yeah.
He said Stefanik hasn't had an at-bat in a week. His minor league numbers are very good in the very limited opportunity he's been given. His average in OPS is almost exactly Shawnuel and O'Hoppe. Seems like he might be the guy who can handle the bat. I'm trying to understand why he isn't getting any chances. It confuses me that Drury plays every day in that spot with some of the lowest numbers on the team. I don't get it. Are we trying to win or develop guys? This situation doesn't seem to do either. hoping smarter guys than me could share some insight. Thanks as always for your knowledge and entertainment. So yes, he's right. He does have some fantastic numbers in AAA. The problem is at the major league level, Stefanik has an OPS of 599 in the majors right now. That's about 100 points lower than like O'Hoppe and Shonwell.
Yeah.
His average is about the same, 244. They're all kind of around the same area, but you've got to consider the sample size in the sense that Shonwell and O'Hoppe have had way more at bats. Now, regarding Drury and Stefanik and the playing time that they're sharing, that one's a little bit mind-boggling. Don't you agree, Mike?
Yeah, I don't think that Wash has a lot of confidence in Michael Stefanik.
That's what it feels like.
I don't think that there's something behind the scenes that maybe we're not aware of, and they're not a fan of him, or he's not a fan of him, because not having him in this starting lineup is interesting. And I think he's a Mickey Moniak type of player. Yeah. He needs more at bats to be consistent.
Yeah, and to me, the one thing I can think of is, is Neto more comfortable with Drury at second? Yeah. That's kind of the only thing I can think of. Perhaps it's the fact that Stefanik's 28. Is he in their future plans? I know that it seemed like he was going to be a bench guy coming into this season, but he got hurt during spring training. It took him a long time to come back. He had a great end to last season and in the opportunities he got. So it just makes me question. I'm with Andrew here. I don't quite understand what the issue is here, but I feel like you're right. It's some sort of behind the scenes. Managers have their favorites, and that's sometimes what it comes down to. I think about Socha and his favorites and how they drove us crazy. I think Fernando Salas drove me nuts when he was out of the bullpen. He wasn't terrible, but it was just like, we're going to Salas again.
When Rob Quinlan would start, I'm like, why is Rob Quinlan in there? The guy was just not great, right? And even like the Jeff Devanins of the world, like, why are we putting him in here in this like pressure-packed game? So why is Jeff Devannin in? Why is Rob Quinlan in? And you'd have like Jose Guillen on the bench, or he'd have, Torrey Hunter sitting that day. And you're like, we need this win. What are you doing? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the Rangers, 5:05 Pacific time. If you can't tell, the heat is getting to me, and the Angels got out of town right in time, Mike, because now they're in Arlington. They'll be playing the Twins later this week, so they're out of town for the heat wave that's plaguing Southern California right now. But if you want, you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on Sirius XM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, are the Halos going to sign a starter in the offseason? Would it be somebody like Blake Snell? Should it be somebody like Blake Snell? We'll get into all of that coming right up.
Today's show is brought to you by Ibotta. It's a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies and so much more. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could be the cost of an entire shopping trip. Maybe
a lot of liquid death.
A lot of liquid death that John drinks every episode, right? Or maybe it's a fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps just give you points that don't amount to much. But with Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, you upload your receipt, and you get real cash that goes into your bank account or your PayPal account, or you can even get gift cards. And with over 50 million savers, they're earning cash back every single time they shop. And then they have 2,700 brands and retailers that you can shop from, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, so much more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners to Locked On Angels $5 just for trying the app. You just need to use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Again, download it in the App Store or Google Play Store. It's all free. And then when you do register, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play Store and the App Store, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and everydayers, you are invited to join us at the O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl. It's taking place October 5th. It's a Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at Cow Bowl in Lakewood. We're raising money for a very great cause. It's called Corey's Promise. They walk alongside families whose children are dealing with pediatric cancer, and they help offset the financial burdens that come along with that. This is a very important cause to Logan O'Hoppe. He's bringing out his teammates to bowl with us. Mike and I are going to be there. You can bowl against us, meet us. We're going to take pictures, have so much fun. And if you want to grab tickets, you can do so by clicking the link in the episode description. When you do buy your ticket, you can use our promo code BROS at checkout, BROS. You can get $50 off your ticket. We're so honored to be asked to be part of this event. We can't wait to see you there. We can't wait to bowl with you. We just can't wait to meet you. It's always so much fun when Mike and I end up at the stadium and we meet everydayers. And so this is a great opportunity for us to hang out with some Angel players and our everydayers. Let's go.
It's Fanmail Friday, and a couple questions you guys had were about free agents in 2025. Two specifically asked a question about that. John Aaron Cantor on Instagram said, with the kids pitching good, does it prevent us signing free agents? And boo the Dodgers. He said that. And then Ian Alexander 1 on Instagram said, do you think we roll with the starters we have, or do we sign a starter? And then he said, Burnes, please. Mr. Burnes. What do you think, John?
Mike, you said it a few days ago after we spoke about Perry Manassian's comments regarding the starting rotation and the guys who are going to compete for that in spring training. And it was all centered around, you know, the fact that they were calling up Aldegari and Caden Dana. You said something that really struck with me. Why don't you share that again?
Yeah, I don't think that their plan is to sign anybody. I think that their plan is to continue to build from within. And I think it's because of the sandbox that has been created for Perry Manassian by Artie Moreno. And I think that what we've seen him do the last couple of years, quietly, softly, with some criticism, we've seen him load this roster up with a lot of really young guys. And we're starting to see a lot of really young pitchers, not necessarily the ones that he drafted, although Caden Data is an example of that, but George Clausen and Samuel Altagiri are two that they got from the Phillies for Carlos Estevez. So we're slowly seeing him pack this roster. John, I think we're going to see a very young, exciting, energetic team in 25 and in 26.
I don't think that will preclude them from trying to add somebody to this rotation, especially a veteran, especially an ace. I know that Tyler Anderson is that veteran presence for this team, and he was pitching like a number one when this season started. I know he's struggled recently, but the thing is, now maybe I talked myself out of it because I did bring up Tyler Anderson. The thing is, Mike, is if they want to compete, and they say that they do, but we never believe them because they don't show us that they want to compete. Show us, don't say it, right? That's like rule number one of writing is show, don't tell. And to me, I think that even if you just got one big free agent arm that is in that upper tier, I think that would make a huge difference to the rotation all the way down, because then you have some really steady, reliable arms that you can count on. You have some arms that you feel like you're going to win every time they take the ball, if it's a number one guy or an ace. And then you have guys that have a lot of potential, like Kohanowitz and Caden Dana, right? So I understand they have a pool of players they can pull from to build a rotation. And you know, history shows that that will probably prevent them, as you are saying, from signing a free agent. I just wish it wasn't the case, especially when you consider this. Bean on YouTube said, do you think the Angels will sign Blake Snell this offseason? If so, would it be a good signing? Well, I pulled his stats, Mike. Listen to this. We all know that Blake Snell got off to a terrible start, and I'll explain why in a second. But he had 6 starts, 23 2/3 innings pitched, 14 walks, 31 Ks, a 9.51 ERA. Then he went on the injured list after that. And the reason why is because he didn't have a spring training. He was one of the Boris 4, right? Scott Boris had those 4 big free agents. We were all seeing where they were going to land. They all signed late, including Blake Snell. And I think that really messed up his preparation for the season. But talk about what he's done since he came back from the injured list in July.
Yeah, listen to the switch here. 10 starts, 63 1/3 innings pitched, 23 walks, 83 Ks, a 1.30 ERA, and a .75 whip. And by the way, a no-hitter versus the Reds on August 2nd.
Right. And so to me, I mean, I know he got off to a rough start. I know the Angels probably would have looked like a laughing stock if they had signed him and he came out of the gate doing that. I just don't see Blake Snell making the same mistake again this offseason if he decides to go anywhere, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's got the option in this situation to opt out with the Giants. I'd have to look into that more specifically. But all that to say, there was a lot of interest from him coming to Southern California, pitching for the Angels. There was a lot of talk about that. Never really heard it from anyone directly. It was always kind of rumor mill from, John Heyman and whatnot, who's usually a Scott Boras mouthpiece anyway, trying to get people to sign Boras guys. All that to say, I think if he does his offseason right, I think that Blake Snell could be a solid addition for the Angels or any team.
And he may not even be available, John, because Matt Chapman did sign a 5-year deal with the Giants and did that yesterday. And so maybe the next move the Giants make is to lock Blake Snell in for a bit as well. So all remains to be seen. How about Truman Hallstrom on Instagram? Truman Show, great movie. What do you want the Angels to get this offseason in a dream world versus reality? He says, who is it, John? So tell me, dreams first.
Dreams first. Obviously, I'm going to go with somebody like Corbin Burnes, Max Fried, Blake Snell, maybe even Juan Soto if we're going to look at offense. Obviously, those are going to be on everybody's radar. Mike, I actually had a funny one, and this would require an opt-out, and I don't see a world where this is happening, but I picked Garrett Cole. He is a Southern California guy. Actually, all these guys, except for Juan Soto, are Southern California guys, even Max Fried. But Garrett Cole, to me, is the next Verlander or Scherzer, where Garrett Cole is 33 years old or so, and his next contract could be for a long time. But Mike, I feel like Garrett Cole is the next pitcher to pitch until he's 40. And so that would be the only reason why I would be interested in having him come to this team, because that, to me, he just screams like he's the last of the old school, I guess you could say, who pitched deep into games. I know he hasn't pitched deep very much this year. He's gone 6 innings at the most, but he was also hurt, right? And so I think that is a tick against him. Otherwise, it's Burnes, Fried, Snell, Soto for me. What about the ones kind of dealing in reality? What do you say?
I think that these names actually would be smart moves for the Halos. It's what the Royals did last season, and I think the Angels, if they made 1 or 2 of these moves, it actually would be very beneficial to the team. Jack Flaherty, Luis Severino, Michael Lorenzen, those 3 names, get 2 of those guys. And suddenly this starting rotation looks a whole lot different, right?
Absolutely. I think that's really important at this point. Mike, Pumas US on Instagram said, do you see Detmers as an Angel still in 5 to 7 years? What do you say?
Well, I got to look at his arbitration, and he got an extra year, so maybe, right? Looking at all the time he still has locked in with the Angels, he does have a few more years with them. John, I just think that Detmers has to be the guy that everybody anticipated him to be,
right?
And if he is that guy, then I think that there's going to be a question if he's with the Angels in 7 years. But if he never actually becomes that guy, then I think he's more Michael Lorenzen, where he kind of bounces around to a few different places. Do you remember Joe Saunders?
Yeah,
Joe Saunders pitched, was great with the Angels, but then he kind of tapped out at 28, 29. And then when he left, he wasn't great, but he had a couple of really good years, double-digit wins for the Angels. The Angels were really good, but he was a great piece in the rotation. You could count on him pulling a Griffin Canning. He's going to throw innings, and he's going to have a lot of pitches, but he's not going to give up a whole lot, and you could count on him to keep you in a game. I could see Reed Detmers being that guy. My hope is that Reed Detmers is the guy that we all have been hoping he would become.
I think that's what it's going to take, is how do these next few years go? Because by the time he's a free agent, he'll be 28. And so then you're really going to have to make a decision. You might make a decision at age 26 to keep him for a few more years, but it's really going to depend on how these next few years go for Reed Detmers.
Have you downloaded Prize Picks yet? Because if you haven't, you are missing out on America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They have over 5 million active members, and they're looking for you. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. All you need to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can watch the winnings roll in. So here's a great example of how they're going to help you out in September. Caleb Williams, starting quarterback, Chicago Bears. They're saying, we're going to give you just 1 passing yard. We're going to give you 1 win. We're going to give you that. All you have to do is pick more, because he's going to have more. And then when you do, you're going to win every time in September when you select Caleb Williams. It's an automatic win. It's 4 weeks of wins. They're going to help you out. It's that simple to play Prize Picks. Even dummies like me can play Prize Picks. And so I would invite you to download it. And when you do, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. They're going to give you $50 when you play $5 just for free. You don't even need to win. Just put in our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and they're going to give you a $50 bonus when you play $5. It's guaranteed. So Prize Picks, run your game.
Mike, a couple of scattered questions here at the end of today's Fanmail Friday. Dune Skies on Instagram, very similar question. I know you guys keep saying 2026 is likely our year. What do you think about 2025? Are we close? What do you say, Mike?
I think it's going to be fun. I just don't know if they'll be competitive, because I think that it depends on what they do in the offseason. If they run with the same guys and they infuse this roster with some of their minor league guys who are now going to be major leaguers, I still think that we're going to be in a place of learning. There's going to be some stretches where we're like, man, this team's fantastic. Look at us. We won 6 in a row. And then we're going to hit a wall and we're going to go, what happened? Well, because they're learning how to play 162 games, or because they haven't played every single day, or they have a tired arm. They haven't pitched this much, right? And so that's going to be the narrative next year if they just run with their young guys and they get younger by bringing up the Caden Danas and the Altagiris and the Clausens.
Yeah, it's going to take more than the team that they've been running out this season. Even though we've seen a lot of progress from them, you imagine that they'll build from that. However, I still think that there's some key anchor pieces missing from this lineup, from the rotation. I know you might consider Jose Soriano as an anchor piece of the rotation just because he's been phenomenal this past year, and they've shut him down basically for the rest of the season. So there's a lot to look forward to, and you wonder if they'll have success if they plug in the guys that they have tried out now, like Kohanowitz and Dana. There's a lot to be answered there. I just don't think that we'll have that answer until we actually see what they do over the offseason. Jack of all trades 19 says, start, bench, trade. Moniak, Adele, and Ward. What do you say, Mike?
It's hard. I think trade is Ward, and I think I would start I would start Joe Adele over Mickey Moniak, just because I would want to see. I think Joe Adele has a higher ceiling than Mickey Moniak does, although I think Mickey Moniak needs the consistent at bat. I sound like a hypocrite because we talked about that yesterday.
It's a hard one, but you know, it is kind of boring to say Ward because obviously he's the oldest one out of that group. Moniak and Adele are the most exciting, but I also know that there was a lot of interest in Ward before he struggled during the trade season. And man, you get him on one of those hot streaks and he looks real good and real important to some other teams out there. I'm going to call it right now. I think maybe there's an offseason move with Taylor Ward because teams will want to start the year with him as opposed to trying to get him in the middle of the year.
And I think it's for an arm, John. And
that would be nice.
Here's what we need to do. Segment for next week. Okay. Write this down. We need to find that undiscovered arm, right?
Ooh,
because
that's my favorite.
There's an undiscovered arm out there that, and Perry Manassian's kind of been the guy that has been able to go and get a trade where you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that trade, right? It doesn't mean it's always worked out great, but there's an undiscovered arm out there that's in the major leagues right now, probably tucked away somewhere on like the White Sox or the Marlins or something like that. So let's write that. You wrote it down. Okay,
I wrote it down. Yeah. You don't want to see my handwriting though. It's terrible.
No.
Like Mrs. K. Holstein. Mrs. K. Holstein on Instagram said, if you could replace one coach, who would it be and who would be the replacement? If I had to and play this game, I'm picking Johnny Washington, but even that is tricky because I don't necessarily know who to replace him with. Torrey Hunter maybe, but he didn't seem interested in coaching. He didn't take the first base job. He was rumored to be in contention for. The other thing is, Mike, I go back to Sydney's comment in the first segment. is we've seen these guys make adjustments. And I don't necessarily think the lack of adjustments have been on Washington. I think they've been on the immaturity of the young guys who convinced themselves that, no, this is the way I'm going to do it. And then Joe Adell got rid of the leg kick and started toe tapping.
Yeah.
Zach Neto got more selective with the leg kick. And you've seen the improvements there. So I just don't think that I've had enough data at this moment to make a judgment on Johnny Washington. It's frustrating. I see the slumps and I see all that stuff, but I also think that it has a lot to do with the young guys.
Emmanuel Monzon on Instagram said, can we expect any other minor leaguers to get a shot like Eric Torres? Johnny, I can't imagine that we are going to see any of these guys at all, or maybe even for 1 or 2 games, like an Eric Torres or a Michael Darrell Hicks or Jordan Adams or a Kyron Paris. It feels like the roster is kind of set, especially when they went to the extra pitcher, extra player, and
Right.
it was Reed Detmers and then it was Charles LeBlanc.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me go, okay, maybe they're just going to let these guys finish out the season in the minor leagues. And so we'll probably see them in spring training, but I don't anticipate we'll see them for the rest of this year.
There's a delicate balance, and maybe this kind of goes back to the question about Brandon Drury and Michael Stefanik. There's a delicate balance where you want to give guys looks, and obviously we would rather give somebody like a Stefanik or a Kyron Paris a look over a Brandon Drury because Drury's not a part of this future. But I also wonder if there's a delicate balance of these guys also deserve to win, and I'm going to put the guys who give them the best chance to do that. And I know Drury has been awful. He's been better recently. I think, we've always talked about how it takes him time to get going.
Yeah.
And I think he's finally getting going. But I think about the move like Charles LeBlanc, and the fact is like, that's a reliable person you can put in to play third base.
Sure.
And it's not Kyron Paris, that sort of thing. I just think that there's a delicate balance of, let's see what these guys can do, but also the young guys deserve to win. And we also want them to feel that they need to know how to win. And we can't just run out all the rookies in the world, as much as you and I would like them to give them the chance because they're not playing for anything right now. I also think there's something to the fact that, hey, you want to win some games. You want to be competitive.
Yeah.
You want guys who are going to keep you in the game so that guys like Adell can have a hero moment or Moniak can hit a walk-off, right? So there's a fine line of walking the let's give everybody a look versus let's give these guys some opportunities to win and see if they actually step up and do it. And I think we've seen that in the past couple of games, especially like against the Mariners. That was a really competitive series, really great for the Angels to take 2 out of 3 that weekend. And so that was really important for them. And to give Mickey Moniak a shot at having a walk-off home run like that, I think requires some veteran guys, some guys that at least have major league experience. So maybe that's what's going on here if I had to make a guess there.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast with our friend Sully. He has you covered wall to wall till the end of the year, playoffs, World Series. He even has like anecdotal stories that he'll tell you that have nothing to do with anything, but they're really interesting. Sully's fantastic. You got to check out his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. He's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. You can always keep up with us there. We always are sharing our thoughts. Sometimes in the YouTube comments, there's breaking news. And it's like, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about that? Well, if you want the instant reaction, usually we're sharing news on Twitter and Instagram and that sort of thing. So keep up with us there if you want to stay in touch with us. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
Well, we got the details on all 4 of the games, including last night's game against the Rangers. And we're going to be specifically watching Altaguiri and Dana's second starts. And so that'll be exciting to talk about. We'll talk about that all on Monday on Locked On Angels.
We got Jack Kohanowitz and Cody Bradford from last night, but I'm looking at, this is really funny, Mike. It's going to be, wait, where is it? I know they're matching up at some point this weekend. I got to find it. Maybe Sunday? Sunday. There it is. Caden Dana versus Andrew Heaney on Sunday. So there you go. That's going to be a fun one for Angel fans to watch for sure. Yes. All right, friends. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us. Stay cool, stay safe, and have a great weekend. And we'll see you back here on Monday.
I'm always cool.
The Heat. My God, the Heat.
Gonna be rough.